All right, welcome everybody. It's good to see you. Thanks for being here. My name is Nathaniel, and this is the Career Care Workshop Series. So hopefully that's where you're next to be. We're excited to have you. We're going to be here the next hour and a half probably. So we'll be out of here by at the latest 2:30, and you can go enjoy your Fridays. But those of you that are online, welcome as well. Hopefully you can hear me. Chop through a few logistics things first. Jordan, if you can give me the next slide. So, never mind. I said I was going to talk about logistics, but I think I'm going to talk about learning objectives for today because that's what came up on the slide. So today we're going to do like anxiety stuff. That's the lecture's topic for today. So we're going to talk about managing stress, managing anxiety. Hopefully everybody got a packet that's in here. Those of you online, it was uploaded to the chat. So go ahead and grab it from the chat. We're going to talk about anxiety trends and stress trends here at APU quickly at first. I'm going to kind of go through that somewhat fast because the main thing I want to do today is give you 3 like hands-on activities that hopefully you can use to help you manage your stress or suggest to friends you know that may be going through something, right? So we're going to do grounding exercises, progressive muscle relaxation, and decatastrophizing. And then I'm going to end with a few different campus resources that might help you out if you're experiencing more anxiety that you can manage. Namely the counseling center, that's where I work. So I'm going to give an ad for that at the end, basically. So if you give me the next slide, please. Now I'm talking about logistics. This is what I thought I was going to talk about a moment ago. Those of you that are here for like SONA credits, please make sure you're registered on our SONA system because we'll go ahead and we'll take attendance at the end of this. There'll be a little feedback survey. We'd love to have your feedback if you're willing to give it to us, but at least make sure you load up the survey and put in your name and email so that we know you was here, right? And that way, if you need attendance verification for anything, we'll know that you're here. But once we have those, then we compare it to who's ever signed up on the SONA list and we grant all the credits. So if you weren't signed up on the SONA list, we won't know to give you the credits. So go ahead and just let us know. If you need attendance verification for anything else, right, just let us know. We're happy to do that. Email me, nfernandez@apu.edu. That's where you can email any questions or just say hi or whatever, right? But that's where we can sort out any issues that you're having. Next slide, please. A few different like ground rules here. So one thing, we are recording today's lecture, but we're just recording like my lecture bits, and we're going to post that online later. But I'm going to make sure we cut out any discussion portions. We're going to cut out any breakout groups. We're going to cut out any like question and answer stuff because like we don't need to put that all online. That way you guys can feel free to engage, while we're here today. So I ask you to respect each other as we're going to do a couple breakouts throughout this. Respect each other, engage with each other well. Those of you online, when you're in your breakout groups, please like turn on your mics, turn on your cameras. If you don't want to turn them on in the main meeting, that's fine, but once we get to those breakout parts, please go ahead and make sure they're turned on. Also, feel free to take a break if you need to. We are going to be talking about anxiety, and it can be stressful. Mental health issues in general can be stressful. Everybody's got their own different past experience, but also just take a break if you need to use the restroom or whatever, all those kinds of things. Those of you that are here in the room, the restrooms are right out through this door here. And then finally, ask me questions because questions are more interesting than the lecture that I have prepped for you all. And also, like, there's no dumb questions, right? Because we all have different levels of exposure here. Some of us are like, senior psych majors. Others of us might be like first year math majors, right? You're going to have a different exposure to psychology concepts. So ask me questions. Guaranteed if you're asking it, somebody else is probably thinking of it as well. I think that's all the things that I want to say in terms of that. So I want to talk a little bit about like what we should do, like from a biblical perspective. How do we think about this? How do we think about stress and anxiety? And I feel like oftentimes, like we think that we shouldn't be stressed or we shouldn't be anxious, right? You go to a lot of like worship services and things like that. I know not all of us are Christian, but many of us are. And like there's a lot of these kinds of verses, right? Like this is from 1 Peter, cast all your anxieties on God, right? And we think if we pray and cast our anxieties on God, we won't feel any kind of anxiousness anymore, right? But I think that's good. And I think we should do that, right? But I also think that like anxiety and stress are part of the human condition, right? Like I think that, and this passage from Luke I like to highlight, right? This is about Jesus like literally like sweating blood like because he's so stressed, right? And so if Jesus is stressed, we should probably also consider the fact that we're going to be stressed. Otherwise, it's a little blasphemous to pretending like we won't experience that kind of thing, right? So if we know that this is something that's going to happen, and if we know that we can pray about it and we can trust God with our anxieties, that's a good step. But like, what else can we do? What can we use, like tools from psychology, perhaps, to deal with our stress in a better way instead of just ignoring it, right? And so, if you could give me the next slide. Um, but one of the things I want to talk about is I keep using the word stress and anxiety, anxiety and stress. I keep using them interchangeably, right? And to some extent, they are interchangeable, right? The big difference between them, right, is that stress is anxiety that's like manageable to us, right? And everybody's going to have their different levels. Some types of stress will get to us more, some types of stress will get to us less. But like when we're just stressed, it's going to be an experience where like we're not necessarily overwhelmed in terms of our ability to cope, right? So this little like cartoon here, if you have like testing stress, right? Somebody's really stressed out. Take the first couple of questions, you're freaking out, but you just keep persisting to get the test done and turn it in, right? That's testing stress, right? Next page, please. If instead you like get into that exam, you read the first couple questions, they're freaking you out, you start shutting down, right? You just like put your pencil down, put your head down or whatever. Like you start looking at all the other students. Are they like getting up earlier than me? Are they leaving already? How are they already done? I haven't even finished the second question. And then in the end, you end up like not even doing anything for half of the testing period. And then you turn in something that you don't get a good grade on, right? That's when that testing stress is moving into that testing anxiety, moving into that space where it interrupts your ability to do the things you need to do in your life, right? I got a couple more examples on the next couple of slides here, right? It's a big public speaking thing, right? Maybe you're really nervous, but hey, you get up there and you do it, right? That's how I feel whenever I do these things. It's probably like my seventh or eighth time doing this lecture to everybody, but like I still get stressed out when I come up here, but I push through it, and then I feel like I can do my best and just do whatever it is, right? Next slide, please. But if you get so stressed out that you just like end up hiding away and like not doing it, not showing up to class on the day that you have the class presentation, right? Like obviously that's where you're falling apart. Or this in this particular example, like a job presentation. I got one more I think on there. Maybe I don't know if you all have those like stresses about like whether you locked up as well. Like did I remember to do something, right? Did I turn off the stove? Did I lock, my car? Did, like is the door closed, right? Those kind of things. Stressing about that and getting up and checking, that makes sense. That's stress, right? But if you can give me the next one there, if you literally like can't sleep because you're constantly worried about it, again, anxiety. So you're seeing what I'm saying, that the idea of clinical distress or functional impairment, the impairment to your functionality, right? And so the more we let stress build up, especially if we ignore it, like several of us said, is like a common thing that we do with stress, right? That stress will build up and it's more likely to get into that clinical anxiety level, right? And so we need to have tools to proactively deal with our stress so that it doesn't get to the level where we get anxious so that we can stay engaged with our world, right? So give me the next slide for me. This is some National College health assessment data. These are all like different kinds of major mental health distress that students have felt in the last 12 months. And you see that literally the highest two are stress and anxiety, right? At almost 40% of folks like feel stressed, almost 30-ish% of folks feel anxious at any given moment. You add those up together, that's like 70 something or other percent. I don't know what the other 30% is doing to not be stressed or anxious at all. I would like to be them, I guess. I am not that person. But like you see that this is an extremely common problem. And that's what we see in the counseling center too. Like folks coming in for like to talk to a counselor, stress and anxiety are the number one reasons people come in, right? Next slide, please. So I want to teach you, if we know it's normal to have stress, and we know, like, Nathaniel, you're badgering this over and over again, tell me something effective to do. Tell me something that I can actually use to go away from this. I'm going to talk to you about three things today. I'm going to talk about decatastrophizing, grounding, and progressive muscle relaxation. Each of these is a type of psychological strategy for managing stress. And I like to think about them as tools in the toolbox, right? Each of you is going to like some of these better or worse than other ones. Maybe you're going to really like the progressive muscle, but I get talking about grounding, you're like, what is he even talking about? I have no idea what he's talking about right now, right? So, like, I want us to walk through these three things today, and hopefully you can find at least one of them that really fits for you, that feels like it might be something that could be useful for you, right? So let's go into the first one. The first, oh, look, I've already got my slides out of order in my mind. Before I go into the first one, I want to talk to you about panic. I just mentioned a few minutes ago, I wanted to talk about panic in specific. If stress builds up into anxiety when it's not managed, when anxiety builds up when it's not managed, it moves into what we call panic, right? So you think about a line from stress to anxiety to panic, right? So panic leads to what you call like panic attack, right? I don't know if you've ever had a panic attack before, or a friend of yours has, or something like that. I've had them; they're not fun, right? Panic attack is when you start like maybe hyperventilating, or you start sweating profusely. You might like get really like dizzy, or like have like hot flashes, or like feel like you're like even you're having a heart attack, right? Like a lot of people, with the very first time they have a panic attack, they go to like an ER and say, "Hey doc, I think I had a heart attack." And that's good. If you think you have a heart attack, please go to an ER, right? Doc will check you out. And if you had a heart attack, they'll help treat you. And if you had a panic attack, they'll help treat you, right? But like that's the intensity that our body like reacts to sometimes when we get too anxious, right? And so I want to start with panic first. So if you can give me the next slide. When we panic, like oftentimes somebody will take, "Hey, just take a deep breath. You'll be fine," right? And like even so, like if you download all those apps or whatever for like anxiety management, they all have like a quiet, calming soundtrack and take a deep breath in and out, right? Like these kinds of things, right? If you are panicking, right? If you are at the point where like you think you're having a heart attack, you think you're going to die from the amount of anxiety that you're having, that is not going to be useful to you, right? If somebody told you to take a deep breath, you would probably hit that, right? Please don't hit people. But like that's why when we get to being panicked, we want to use a special type of relaxation exercise. It's actually called grounding, right? So grounding is trying to focus on external things around us using our attention and the fact that we have a limited amount of attention in order to help us calm down, right? So basically, a panic attack should go up, right? Because your anxiety is going up, 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 up. And then you freak out. Now you're having a panic attack. But like they're tired. If you've ever had a panic attack before, like you're exhausted afterwards, right? And so your body shouldn't be able to maintain that level of freaked out for a long time, right? And so it should come right back down eventually. Now that's not good. You still had a panic attack. That doesn't feel good, right? But it should come right back down. The problem is when we're panicking, you're not just naturally letting your body do its thing, right? When we're panicking, we're focused on the thing that is making us panic, right? Maybe it's something that happened in the past, right? Maybe it's like I just failed that big test, or I just had that fight with my partner, or whatever. Or maybe it's something in the future, right? I have to, like do all these assignments, or I have this big test, or I have, this thing at work, or whatever it is, right? But either way, you're not focused on the current present moment, where in the current present moment, you are not dying, right? Unless you would go to a hospital or whatever again. But like for the most part, when you're panicking, you're fine if you could just focus on right now, right? Right now in this moment. Yes, there are terrible things that have just happened or will happen soon, but right now in this moment, I'm fine, right? If I could turn my attention away from the things that are freaking me out, my panic attack will go up and it'll go down. But if I don't, if I focus on those other things, it'll go up and then it'll stay up for a really long time, right? And so when we're trying to ground, what we're trying to do is take your attention, take your focus, and focus it on something current in the present moment so that we can break up that panic attack so that it can end quicker. It's not going to make your panic attack immediately going away. It's not going to make you feel 100% better, right? But it is going to stop the intensity and the duration of the panic attack, right? And so one of the main ways you can do that is called 5-4-3-2-1 grounding. So Some of you may have heard of this before. It's probably the most common one if you Google panic attack. This is going to be the thing that comes up first. But the idea is you say 5 things that you can see around you in your current environment. I see my workbook right here. I see my water bottle. I see my water bottle cap over there. I see my green bag on the floor. And I see this chair right next to it, right? None of those things matter. None of those things are even all that interesting, right? But if I'm focusing on naming things around me, then I'm not focused on the things that are stressing me out. Then I name 4 things I can feel, right? Now, this should not be things I can feel inside. I feel my heart racing too fast. I feel like I can't catch my breath, right? Like it's going to make you panic more, right? These should be things outside of you that you can feel. I can feel the tabletop here. It feels like cooler. It's got a fake wood grain on it, but when you run your fingers over it, you can tell this is not real wood, like because there's no texture to it. I can feel like the material of my slacks. I can feel like the grit of the paper, whatever, right? 4 things that you can feel around you. Then you name 3 things you can hear. You can hear my voice, probably. You can hear the humming of the workstation there, the fans in the computer. You can hear people shuffling papers and clicking pens and stuff because there's 20 of us in here or whatever that makes some amount of noise, right? Those kinds of things are what's going to help like focus you down. And then 2 things you can smell. Let's not describe the smell of a dusty old classroom in Ronald right now. We can skip that. 1 thing you can taste, right? Get a drink of water, have a bite of something to eat, whatever, have it there. I guess starting to pick up what I'm talking about here, the use of attention. So in your packets as well, on page 4 and 5, there's a whole list of grounding exercises, right? So it's not just this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 that I talked about, but you'll see in all of them that they are trying to use your attention. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is trying to use your attention by naming things, trying to use all 5 of your senses, right? All of these ones will be using various numbers of your senses in various ways to help you ground, right? So we're going to look at those more in a few minutes, but those are this is not the only one, basically. That makes sense, everybody? We're feeling good about grounding ideas? Okay, let's go to the next slide. So the next thing I want to talk about is decatastrophizing, right? So grounding is sort of a mindfulness-based technique, right? It's about focusing on your here and now, your present moment, right? Instead of mindfulness, we might want to also use like cognitive therapy techniques, right? Cognitive therapies are the things where we basically, it doesn't matter as much what happens to you as much as how you think about what happens to you, right? Like if you have a test tomorrow and you don't think you're going to pass that test, you're going to be anxious. If you have a test tomorrow and you don't care if you pass that test, you're just going to be ambivalent, right? And so it matters how you think about things, right? The problem is that oftentimes we engage in what's called catastrophizing, right? We make something bigger in our heads than it really is in life, right? So let's take that test example, right? You got a test coming up tomorrow, right? It's a pretty big test, right? And so now I'm freaking out about this test. I'm definitely going to fail this test, right? I don't know, maybe. But and then if I fail this test, I'm definitely going to fail this entire class. I don't know, maybe. Well, if I fail this test, I'm going to fail this class. I'm going to fail out of school. Well, maybe, but we're getting less and less likely. If I fail this test, I fail this class, fail out of school, fail in life, never become anything, and just basically be a nobody for forever. No, come on, let's slow it down, right? But that's the catastrophizing that we go through in our heads. We make it bigger and bigger and bigger because we're scared, right? And so naturally we do that, right? And so decatastrophizing involves identifying how scared we should be about a thing. If we reasonably, rationally think about something, how scared should we be? It's not about being optimistic, like, oh, I have this test tomorrow I'm really scared about. Don't worry, I'll get 100%. No, that's probably not going to happen. You probably weren't scared about it if you were just going to get 100% anyways, right? But how reasonably and rationally can we engage with the real amount of scared we should be, right? And then hopefully that amount of stress can be stress versus anxiety, right? So if you could give me the next page on that one. Oh, the title was just separated from some reason. Oh, well. So like I said, it's not the power of positive thinking. It's not thinking unrealistically. But if you were right every time you thought the world would end, then the world would have ended many times by now, right? So I've got a few decatastrophizing exercises for you in the handout as well. Okay, so pages 6 through 9. So 6 and 7 are an example, right? This is a decatastrophizing handout, right? So let's say I'm worried about the upcoming exam. Okay, I used the exam example already, but I guess we're using the exam example here as well. I should have thought about that. So when I fail this exam, it's going to lead me to failing the course. I have to repeat the entire class. I'm scared 80%, right? But if you go on to page 7, right? Okay, that's never really happened to me before. I've never like failed out that hard before. Or maybe you have, but it's only been infrequently. How often does this kind of thing happen? Hardly ever. Realistically, what's likely to happen? I'm probably not going to get the best score here, but I'll probably be fine-ish, right? Or how awful would it be if it did happen? Maybe it is likely that this is going to happen, but how awful would it be if it happened, right? What's the worst case scenario? I need to study better for the next exams. I need to maybe retake it, but like I'll have a better opportunity once I retake it because I'll have learned half of it already, right? Something like that. And then just some ways I can cope with it, even if the worst thing did happen. What resources do I still have available to me, right? I can talk to the professor, I can connect with my buddy, my roommate, whatever, right? So taking all these things into account, right? How stressed should we be? Maybe instead of 80% stressed, maybe we should be 35% stressed, right? You see how this idea is panning out, right? And so there's an empty sheet for you as well to list those kinds of things out on pages 8 and 9 if you want to use one. Okay, but I want to talk about one more thing, because grounding and decatastrophizing, they're sort of uh, like behavioral and cognitive kind of things, and they're not like a straight up just relaxation exercise, right? And so I do want to give you one this is a more of a behavioral thing, that's a very practical relaxation, right? And one of the reasons we talk about relaxation is the way our bodies actually build emotions, right? So we have like a physiological experience, and that's like the fight or flight response you may have heard about before, or it's probably better called fight, flight, or freeze, right? Because it also might just freeze up. But that's a level of physiological arousal, right? Typically your heart rate will increase, like your breathing will get shallow, like your muscles will get tense, those kinds of things when we are starting to feel some kind of emotion. That emotion could be, any different kind of emotion, right? It could be anxious or it could be excited or whatever, right? But it's some kind of emotion. And our minds actually notice what's going on in our body and realize, oh, I'm having an emotion. I wonder what that emotion is. And I wonder how intense that emotion is. Well, I bet it's anxiety because I'm thinking about the test that I have tomorrow, or I'm thinking about the conversation I had with my partner or whatever. And I bet it's really intense because my body feels really tense right now. So I better have a really big anxiety response right now, right? Of course, your mind isn't doing all of those things out loud or anything, right? But that's on a very basic level, the physiological experience comes slightly before the cognitive labeling and therefore the experience of the emotion, right? So if we could just calm our bodies down, we actually could do a lot to calm our thoughts down and calm our emotions down, right? Because that body experience comes first, right? And so that's what lies underneath the idea of progressive muscle relaxation. So if you could give me the next slide here. So a progressive muscle relaxation, I'll walk us through one together. So there's a script for these on page, whatever the next page of the book is. I think page 10. I'll probably go a little bit off script, but there is a script in here if you ever want to do this again. But I just want us to practice it together today. So the idea behind a progressive muscle relaxation is that we're going to kind of tense up different muscle groups as tense as you can do them without hurting yourself. Please nobody hurt yourself today, right? We're going to tense them up so that we can then relax them back down, right? Because if I just look at you and if I just say, hey, relax, hey, stop having tension in your shoulders, hey, stop, furrowing your brows like that, right? That's a hard thing to do. You can't just do that when I say it, right? But if instead we lean into the tension, It's sort of like getting a running start, right? You can lean into it and then lean out of it, and you can end up more relaxed than when you start, right? Okay. But I'm over explaining this. Let's just do it. Follow along with me. I'm going to ask us to like take deep breaths in as we tense different muscle groups, and then exhale as we let them go, right? And I'll be doing the movements with you, like it's some kind of weird exercise video or something like that. So just watch what I'm doing if you don't understand the instructions, okay? All right, everybody take a big deep breath in and out. We're going to start with the legs, so go ahead and lift your legs. Point your toes back. Sorry, those desks are kind of hard where they're at. Point your toes back towards you. Tense the muscles as tight as you can make them without hurting yourself. Tense. And release. Let them back down to the ground as you exhale. Feel the difference. One more time, lift them up. Tense them as tight as you can. Hold it as tight as you can for as long as you can. Tense. And release. We're going to do those one more time because the first time was just to kind of get to learn it. Point them back, tighten them up. Point your toes back towards you as tight as you can to really pull through your calves and your hamstrings. Tighten. And release as you exhale. Shake them out a little bit if you want. Now we're going to do like your glutes and your core. So basically tighten up all your abs, tighten up your butt as tight as you can. Feel like the tension. And release it back down. Same thing again, tighten up all those core muscles, tighten. And release. All right, now we're going to do arms. So pretend like you're like doing some kind of flex here. Tighten the muscles as tight as you can without, again, hurting yourself. Tense. And release. Go ahead again, tense. Even tighten your fists up as much as you can too. Tense. And release. Let it go back down. Shake it out a little bit. Now we're going to do your shoulders a little bit. We're going to try and pretend like you're touching your shoulders to your earlobes. Tensing them up as tight as you can. Tensing all those muscles in your upper back. Tense. And release. Roll it out. Let it fall back down. Same thing again. Inhale as you tense. And exhale as you release. Okay, go up a little higher on your neck now. Pretend like you're touching your left ear to your left shoulder. Bring your ear down to your shoulder this time instead of your shoulders up to your ear. You should feel the stretch in the right part of your neck here. And release, roll back to the middle. Same thing again, left ear to left shoulder, and then the right side of your neck. And release. Let's do the other side, right ear, right shoulder, stretching the left side of your neck. And release. One more time, right ear, right shoulder. And release. All right, just two more here. I want you to tighten up like your scalp a little bit as much as you can. Like you're really surprised. Like lift your eyebrows up, tighten all the muscles like through your temples and your scalp. And release. Probably making a really weird face, but that's okay. Nobody's looking at you. Everybody's looking at me. Lift those eyebrows up again. Tense those muscles. Tense. And release. All right, last one. We're going to do like your facial muscles. So you're going to pretend like you just ate something extremely sour. You're going to close your eyes real tight. You're going to clamp your jaw tight, tense. And release. And one last one, same weird face, tense. And release. All right. I'm going to have us do two more deep breaths. And anywhere you still feel tension, roll it out, stretch it out, whatever. Big deep breath in. Big deep breath in and out. All right. And now we can all stop our weird muscle stretching exercise. Thank you all for doing that with me. So feel your muscles. Think about how they feel right now. You probably feel a little weird, but probably also feel a little bit more heaviness, right? A little bit more relaxation. Sometimes even than you noticed before, right? I like, especially when I do like my neck and shoulders, I notice like, oh, I had tension in there that I wasn't even like thinking of, right? And one of the things that I think is important as we do this, right? I told you stress leads to anxiety, leads to panic, right? Things like this progressive muscle relaxation, or really any of those classic relaxation things, a deep breathing exercise, a yoga routine, not like one of those like hot yoga routines, but like a more traditional, like slow one, right? Like those kinds of things that give your body like relaxation, right? Or maybe it's even, going in like a hot tub or taking a warm shower or something like that, right? Whatever it is that is physiologically relaxing to you, it reduces the stress you're carrying, right? And if your stress level is like at 30%, you only need 70% more to make you panic, right? But if your resting stress level is like 15%, then you have a lot more for your day, right? The different things that are come at you during the day, the different things that are going to stress you out or make you freak out. Like if we can do these kinds of relaxation exercises, like just as a part of your daily routine, then you will feel a lot better off, right? Whereas decatastrophizing, you have to do when you're catastrophizing, right? And grounding, you have to do when you're having a panic attack, right? These kinds of relaxation exercises, I encourage you to build into your day to day, maybe especially during times that you know you're going to be stressed, right? Like I said, those 2 weeks when we get back from Thanksgiving break are going to be a mess, right? Because you got 1 week of classes and then you got to do your finals, right? So, like, proactively schedule in these kinds of things, whatever relaxation it is, whether it's progressive muscle or any other kind of relaxation. And that will be really beneficial for you in avoiding that anxiety and avoiding that panic. Does that feel good to everybody? Okay. Thanks, y'all. Can I have the next slide? So, the last thing is when do you seek help for this kind of stuff, right? So hopefully these techniques, at least some of them, are useful to you. Maybe you don't like them, maybe you do like them. We'll see, right? But hopefully they'll be somewhat helpful to you. If you find though that these techniques and your best efforts aren't controlling your anxiety, right? Maybe it's a really stressful time for you. Maybe a lot of things are happening, right? Maybe it's normal that you're stressed. In some cases, like when things are happening, they're going to stress you out, right? Come to the counseling center. So we have like 24/7 urgent care support for you all. It's all free, it's all confidential, right? So you probably will have better access to mental health care right now as a student than you will after you graduate, right? Because then you're going to need to afford insurance somehow. You're going to need to use that insurance to find a provider. You're going to need to pay your copays, right? Like it's 100 free here, right? So like come use it whenever. Can you give me the next slide, Jordan? There's other places as well that might be useful to you, right? Like we have our Office of Campus Ministries always offering pastoral care as well. We have, our Academic Success Center, you're stressed about academics. That was the number one thing everybody kept saying, right? Find a tutor that might help with that stress a little bit, right? We student financial aid, right? If that's we're scared about finances, right? See if we can get stuff figured out. When you're scared about, oh, I don't really understand how my FAFSA works or anything like that, the unknown is scary, right? When you actually talk to somebody and get some information, that's still scary, but it gets rid of the unknowns and it helps you not catastrophize. It helps you focus in, right? Other things, our ADR office, if you really have intense anxiety, maybe testing anxiety or something like that, you need some accommodations, you need extra time on tests or a different atmosphere, maybe you've got some attention differences and need like a quiet room to take tests in, we got that available for you. Our campus safety office is around if you're stressed about, physical safety around things. They do escort rides and things like that. Our Center for Reconciliation Diversity as well, stressed about lots of different like political climate things happening right now. It's a great place to find support and be able to process things. Lots of stuff. So if you can give me the next slide. This is our stuff though, because again, I'm a homer. I love the counseling center. They pay my salary. and they let me do these workshops, call us at 626-815-2109, anytime, 24/7. During the day, we'll pick up and we'll connect you to somebody. At night, you'll get the voicemail and you'll push to talk to a human. Next slide, please. This is where we're at. The health center is right over here. Our door is right over there. This is Magnolia Court in the Shire Mods area. It used to be called Magnolia Court because there was a magnolia tree. There's not a magnolia tree anymore, but it's still called Magnolia Court. Just walk that way past the baseball field and you'll get there. Next slide. One thing, sometimes when people are really freaking out, right? Maybe having a panic attack that we are worried could be damaging their health, maybe go to the ER instead, right? Or maybe if you've ingested some kind of substance, right? Some people unfortunately are tempted to overuse alcohol or other drugs, to cope with anxieties. Those can get addictive. Those can cause overdose, things like that. So if there's some kind of emergency situation going on, please call 911 or go to a hospital first, but then still call us. We're still happy to talk to you about it as well. But just make sure everybody's safe. Last slides, I think. One last call to action. I'm not going to make you get into your breakout groups, but we're ending today. We're ending early, so I'm giving you a full 20 minutes of your day back that you didn't know you was going to have. Please just remember one thing we talked about today and take it with you and do it. Because if you don't do any of this stuff, it's not going to help you none, and then you just still feel stressed and anxious. All right. Last couple of slides here. Jordan and I will stay up here and take questions, both in the Zoom chat and in person. These workshops, we've got 2 left. If you want to come next week, that's when a lot of people like. This one is our solving conflicts and improving relationships. So we'll talk about romantic relationships, family relationships, friend relationships, all that kind of stuff. And then our last one is goal setting and time management right before Thanksgiving. Next one. This is our scan code here. Like I said, please go ahead and scan these. We really love if you fill out the feedback questions. That would really help us. But please do make sure you at least get to the end and put your name and your email in there so we know we can grant you credits if you need Sona credits, attendance credits, whatever. These workshops are also sponsored in part by our Project Youth Wellness team, which is folks that we collaborate with here on campus. And so if you want any more information about that, or if you have any questions about the survey, or if you have any questions just about life in general, just email me. Again, it's mfernandez@apu.edu. Other than that, whenever you're done with the survey, head out and have a great weekend. And thanks so much for coming.